The morning sun cast long shadows across the aircraft carrier USS Intrepid as Lieutenant Sarah Chen made her final preparations for what should have been a routine reconnaissance mission. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly in all directions, its surface deceptively calm despite the growing tensions in the region. Sarah had been assigned to this carrier for 8 months, and in that time, she had earned a reputation as one of the most skilled intelligence officers in the fleet. Her mission briefing had been straightforward enough. She was to gather intelligence on enemy submarine movements in the contested waters near the Mariana Islands. The information she collected would be crucial for upcoming naval operations. Sarah had completed dozens of similar missions before, but something about this one felt different. The commanding officers seemed more tense than usual, and there had been whispered conversations that stopped abruptly whenever she approached. As Sarah walked through the narrow corridors of the carrier, she noticed the unusual activity around her. Crew members who normally greeted her with friendly nods now avoided eye contact. The atmosphere felt charged with an electricity she couldn't quite identify. She attributed it to the general stress of military operations and continued with her preparations. The intelligence package she carried contained sensitive information about enemy positions and friendly submarine locations. This data was vital for coordinating safe passage through the dangerous waters ahead. Sarah had been specifically chosen for this mission because of her expertise in underwater reconnaissance and her clean security record. She took pride in her work and the trust that had been placed in her. What Sarah didn't know was that her commanding officer, Admiral Harrison, had received troubling intelligence just hours before her departure. There were reports of a security breach within their intelligence network, and suspicion had fallen on several officers, including Sarah. The evidence was circumstantial but concerning enough to warrant immediate action. Admiral Harrison faced an impossible decision. Sarah was scheduled to depart within the hour, and her mission was critical to the safety of American submarines operating in the area. However, if she was indeed compromised, sending her out could endanger the entire fleet. The Admiral had built his career on making tough decisions, but this one kept him awake all night. The decision was made in a secured briefing room with only the Admiral's most trusted advisors present. They would allow Sarah to believe she was departing as planned, but at the last moment, she would be quietly removed from the mission. Another officer would take her place, and Sarah would be detained for questioning until the security concerns could be resolved. Sarah made her way to the flight deck, where a helicopter waited to transport her to the submarine rendezvous point. The pilot, Commander Rodriguez, had flown her on previous missions and gave her a reassuring smile as she approached. The rotor blades were already spinning, creating a powerful downdraft that whipped her hair around her face. As she climbed into the helicopter, Sarah felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Master Chief Petty Officer Williams, a man she had worked with closely over the past months. His expression was serious, almost apologetic. Behind him stood 2 security personnel she didn't recognize. "Lieutenant Chen, you need to come with us," Williams said, his voice barely audible over the helicopter noise. "There's been a change in plans." Confusion flooded Sarah's mind as she was escorted away from the helicopter. She looked back to see another officer, Lieutenant Morrison, taking her place and carrying her mission briefing. The helicopter lifted off without her, disappearing into the morning sky as she was led below deck to a secured compartment. The room she was taken to was small and sterile, containing only a table, 2 chairs, and a single overhead light. Sarah's military training kicked in, and she remained calm despite the growing fear in her chest. She knew that asking questions now would be pointless until someone in authority explained what was happening. Hours passed before Admiral Harrison finally entered the room. Sarah had served under him for months and had always respected his leadership. Seeing the troubled expression on his weathered face, she knew this was serious. He sat across from her, his hands folded on the table between them. "Lieutenant, "I'm going to be direct with you," the Admiral began. "We have reason to believe there's been a security breach in our intelligence network. Your name has come up in connection with some concerning communications." Sarah's heart raced as she processed his words. The accusation was devastating, not just professionally, but personally. Her entire identity was built around her service to her country, and the suggestion that she might be a traitor felt like a physical blow. "Sir, I don't understand," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "What communications? What evidence do you have?" Admiral Harrison pulled out a folder containing several documents. As he spread them across the table, Sarah could see they were copies of encrypted messages and financial records. Some bore her name, while others contained information only she would have had access to during recent missions. The evidence was damning, even though Sarah knew she had never betrayed her country. Someone had gone to great lengths to make it appear as though she was selling intelligence to enemy agents. The financial records showed deposits to an account in her name that she had never opened. The encrypted messages contained details from her previous missions that had somehow been compromised. As Sarah examined the documents, her mind raced to understand how this could have happened. She thought about her colleagues, her access to sensitive information, and anyone who might have had the opportunity and motive to frame her. The realization that someone she trusted had betrayed her was almost as painful as the false accusation itself. Meanwhile, the helicopter carrying Lieutenant Morrison was approaching the submarine rendezvous coordinates. The USS Leviathan, a nuclear submarine, was waiting beneath the surface for the intelligence package that Sarah was supposed to deliver. Captain Mitchell, the submarine's commanding officer, had no idea that the wrong person was bringing him the information. The submarine's sonar operator detected the approaching helicopter and reported to the captain. Everything appeared normal from their perspective. The intelligence exchange was scheduled to take place according to strict protocols that had been established months earlier. Captain Mitchell had worked with Lieutenant Chen before and trusted her completely, but he wouldn't know about the switch until it was too late. As Lieutenant Morrison descended toward the submarine on a rescue basket, he carried not only the original intelligence package, but also secret orders that would change everything. These orders, known only to Admiral Harrison and a select few, contained information about a planned operation that would test the loyalty and judgment of everyone involved. Back on the carrier, Sarah continued to maintain her innocence while Admiral Harrison and his investigators pressed for answers. The interrogation stretched into the evening, with Sarah providing detailed accounts of her recent activities and associations. She offered to take polygraph tests, submit to background investigations, and do whatever was necessary to clear her name. The Admiral found himself in an increasingly difficult position. Sarah's responses seemed genuine, and her service record was exemplary. However, the evidence against her was substantial, and he couldn't ignore the possibility that she had been expertly trained to deceive interrogators. The safety of American personnel depended on his ability to make the right decision with limited information. As night fell over the Pacific, the USS Leviathan received the intelligence package and began processing its contents. Captain Mitchell reviewed the information carefully, noting some inconsistencies in the formatting and authentication codes. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't immediately identify what was bothering him about the package. The submarine was now operating under new orders that required complete radio silence until further notice. Captain Mitchell was uncomfortable with this directive, as it meant they would be unable to communicate with Fleet Command if an emergency arose. However, military protocol demanded compliance with orders from superior officers, regardless of personal reservations. Unknown to Captain Mitchell, the intelligence package contained false information designed to test his response to compromised data. Admiral Harrison and his team were conducting a complex operation to identify security breaches and determine the extent of enemy infiltration in their networks. Sarah's detention was just one part of a larger investigation that would ultimately determine the fate of multiple personnel. As Sarah spent her first night in detention, she reflected on the events that had led to this moment. She thought about her family, who had always been proud of her service, and how they would react if these accusations became public. The possibility of being court-martialed and imprisoned for treason was terrifying, but she was determined to fight for her innocence. The investigation would continue for days, with Sarah subjected to multiple interviews, background checks, and psychological evaluations. Meanwhile, the USS Leviathan would find itself in an increasingly dangerous situation as it operated with compromised intelligence in hostile waters. The connection between Sarah's detention and the submarine's mission would soon become clear in ways that no one could have anticipated. Sarah's fate now rested in the hands of military investigators who had to balance national security concerns with individual justice. The evidence against her was substantial but potentially fabricated, and the truth would require careful analysis of digital forensics, witness testimony, and circumstantial evidence. Her career, her freedom, and her reputation hung in the balance as the investigation proceeded. The carrier continued its patrol through the Pacific, its crew unaware of the complex drama unfolding in their midst. Sarah's absence from normal duties was explained as a temporary reassignment, and only a select few knew the true nature of her situation. The isolation and uncertainty were taking their toll, but Sarah remained determined to prove her innocence and return to the service she loved. Captain Mitchell studied the navigation charts spread across the control room table of the USS Leviathan as his submarine moved silently through the deep Pacific waters. 3 days had passed since receiving the intelligence package from the carrier, and the information within it had led them into increasingly dangerous territory. The submarine was now operating in waters known to be heavily patrolled by enemy forces, following coordinates that seemed questionable to his experienced eye. The intelligence indicated safe passage routes through the contested waters, but Captain Mitchell's instincts told him something was fundamentally wrong. His sonar operators were reporting unusual acoustic signatures that didn't match the intelligence briefings. Enemy submarine activity appeared to be much heavier than anticipated, and the safe corridors mentioned in the package seemed to lead directly into areas of highest risk. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams, the submarine's intelligence officer and no relation to Sarah Chen, had been analyzing the data package extensively. She approached Captain Mitchell with growing concerns about the authenticity of their orders. The encryption signatures were correct, but subtle anomalies in the formatting suggested the possibility of compromised intelligence. "Captain, I've been reviewing our mission parameters again," Williams reported quietly. "The enemy movement patterns we're observing don't match the intelligence we received. Either their positions have changed dramatically in the past 72 hours, or our information is incorrect." Captain Mitchell nodded grimly. He had been having similar thoughts but hoped his experienced intelligence officer would either confirm or dispel his suspicions. The submarine was currently running deep and silent, but their current course would soon force them into shallow waters where detection became much more likely. Meanwhile, back on the USS Intrepid, Sarah Chen's situation had grown more complex. The investigation into her alleged security breaches had uncovered additional evidence that seemed to implicate her further. However, Agent Martinez from Naval Criminal Investigative Service had arrived to conduct an independent review of the case, bringing with him expertise in counterintelligence operations. Agent Martinez spent hours reviewing the digital evidence against Sarah, employing forensic techniques that revealed disturbing patterns. The financial records and communications that had initially appeared damning showed signs of sophisticated manipulation. Someone with advanced technical skills and high-level access had carefully constructed false evidence to frame Sarah for crimes she had never committed. "Admiral, we have a problem," Martinez reported during a private briefing. The evidence against Lieutenant Chen has been fabricated. The digital fingerprints point to someone with intimate knowledge of our security protocols and access to classified systems. This isn't just about Lieutenant Chen anymore. We're dealing with a mole who has been operating within your command structure. Admiral Harrison felt his stomach drop as the implications became clear. If Sarah was innocent, then the real traitor was still free and had successfully manipulated the command structure to eliminate a potential threat to their operations. The intelligence package sent to the USS Leviathan could be compromised, putting the submarine and its crew in mortal danger. The Admiral immediately ordered enhanced security protocols and began reviewing personnel files for anyone who had access to the information used to frame Sarah. The list was disturbingly short, consisting only of his most trusted officers. The possibility that one of them was an enemy agent forced him to question everything he thought he knew about his command. On the USS Leviathan, Captain Mitchell made the difficult decision to deviate from his orders. The intelligence he had received was proving to be not just inaccurate, but potentially deadly. His submarine was being guided into what appeared to be a carefully laid trap, with enemy submarines positioned to intercept them along the prescribed route. "Change course to bearing 270, Captain Mitchell ordered his navigation officer. "Take us deeper and reduce speed to 1/3. We're going to take a different route back to safer waters." The decision to disobey direct orders was not taken lightly. Military protocol demanded strict adherence to commands from superior officers. But Captain Mitchell's primary responsibility was the safety of his crew. He would face serious consequences for his actions, but he refused to lead his people into an obvious ambush based on questionable intelligence. As the submarine changed course, the sonar operators detected multiple hostile contacts that had been lying in wait along their original route. The enemy submarines were positioned exactly where the compromised intelligence had indicated safe passage. Captain Mitchell's decision to trust his instincts rather than follow orders had likely saved the lives of everyone aboard. Back on the carrier, Admiral Harrison was forced to make a painful decision. The investigation had revealed that Commander Peterson, his trusted intelligence coordinator, was the source of the security breach. Peterson had been feeding information to enemy agents for months, while simultaneously working to eliminate Sarah, who had begun to notice inconsistencies in intelligence reports that could have exposed his activities. The arrest of Commander Peterson sent shockwaves through the carrier's command structure. Peterson had been considered above suspicion, with an exemplary service record and access to the highest levels of classified information. His betrayal represented not just a personal failure, but a systemic breakdown in security screening and oversight. Sarah was immediately released from detention and briefed on the true situation. The relief of being cleared was overshadowed by the knowledge that her career and reputation had been deliberately targeted by someone she had trusted. The emotional impact of the betrayal was devastating. But Sarah knew that her immediate focus had to be on helping to address the damage that Peterson's activities had caused. "Lieutenant Chen, I need you to help us understand the full scope of Peterson's activities," Admiral Harrison said during their first meeting after her release. "You've been reviewing intelligence reports for months, and you may have noticed patterns that we missed. Your expertise is crucial to determining what other operations may have been compromised." Sarah threw herself into the investigation with determination fueled by anger and professional duty. She reviewed months of intelligence reports, communications logs, and operational records looking for signs of Peterson's manipulation. The pattern that emerged was sophisticated and extensive, involving multiple ongoing operations and the systematic compromise of American submarine movements. The USS Leviathan was still maintaining radio silence according to their original orders, unaware that their intelligence had been compromised or that the situation on the carrier had been resolved. Captain Mitchell continued to navigate using his own judgment, avoiding enemy patrols and working his way back toward friendlier waters. Lieutenant Commander Williams had been conducting her own analysis of their situation and reached troubling conclusions about their mission. The submarine had been sent into waters that were far more dangerous than originally indicated, carrying intelligence that could expose American submarine capabilities if captured. The entire operation appeared designed to either destroy the submarine or allow its capture by enemy forces. "Captain, I believe our mission was deliberately compromised from the beginning," Williams reported. "The intelligence package we received contains accurate information about our submarine capabilities and patrol patterns. If this information falls into enemy hands, it could compromise our entire Pacific submarine fleet." Captain Mitchell realized that his submarine had been intended as either a sacrifice or a delivery mechanism for sensitive intelligence. Either outcome would benefit enemy forces while dealing a significant blow to American naval operations. The decision to disobey orders was looking more justified with each passing hour. The submarine's communications officer approached with an urgent message. Despite their radio silence orders, he had been monitoring emergency frequencies and detected distress signals from American vessels operating in their area. 3 other submarines had gone missing in the past 48 hours, all operating under similar intelligence packages to the one carried by the Leviathan. Captain Mitchell faced another crucial decision. Military protocol still demanded radio silence, but American lives were at stake. His submarine might be the only asset in position to provide assistance to vessels in distress. The choice between following orders and saving lives was becoming clearer with each piece of information they gathered. On the carrier, Sarah's investigation had revealed the full extent of Peterson's betrayal. Multiple submarine crews had been sent into danger based on false intelligence, and several vessels were now missing or in distress. The compromised intelligence network had been feeding information to enemy forces for months, allowing them to position their submarines to intercept American vessels. Admiral Harrison authorized an immediate change in operations to locate and assist any American submarines operating with compromised intelligence. Sarah was assigned to coordinate the rescue operations, using her expertise to help guide friendly vessels away from known danger areas and towards safety. The irony was not lost on Sarah that she was now working to save the lives of submarine crews who had been endangered by the same false accusations that had nearly destroyed her career. Her detailed knowledge of submarine operations and intelligence protocols made her invaluable to the rescue efforts, despite the personal cost she had endured. As rescue operations began, time was running out for multiple submarine crews operating in hostile waters with false intelligence. The USS Leviathan, operating under Captain Mitchell's independent judgment, represented the best hope for locating and assisting other American submarines before enemy forces could intercept them. The stage was set for a dangerous rescue operation that would test the courage and judgment of everyone involved. Sarah's vindication was complete, but the real test would be whether the knowledge gained from exposing Peterson's betrayal could be used quickly enough to save American lives in the vast Pacific Ocean. Captain Mitchell prepared his crew for the possibility of combat operations as they moved toward the last known positions of missing American submarines. The USS Leviathan was about to become the lifeline for crews who had no idea their missions had been compromised from the beginning. Captain Mitchell stood in the control room of the USS Leviathan, watching his crew prepare for what could become the most dangerous operation of their careers. The submarine had detected faint sonar contacts that matched the acoustic signature of the USS Hammerhead, one of 3 American submarines reported missing in the past 48 hours. The contact was weak and intermittent, suggesting the vessel was either damaged or deliberately hiding from enemy forces. The tactical situation was complex and dangerous. Enemy submarines were known to be operating in the area, and any attempt to communicate with or rescue the Hammerhead would expose the Leviathan to detection and possible attack. However, Captain Mitchell could not ignore the possibility that American lives hung in the balance while he maintained the safety of radio silence. Sarah Chen worked feverishly in the communications center of the USS Intrepid. coordinating intelligence updates with rescue vessels throughout the Pacific. Her analysis of Peterson's betrayal had revealed that at least 4 American submarines had been operating with compromised intelligence over the past week. The USS Hammerhead, USS Stingray, and USS Barracuda were all missing, while the Leviathan remained out of contact due to radio silence orders. "Admiral, I've identified the enemy strategy," Sarah reported during an urgent briefing. "Peterson was systematically feeding false intelligence to our submarine commanders, guiding them into pre-positioned ambush points. The enemy forces aren't randomly patrolling these waters. They're waiting at specific coordinates that match our compromised operational plans." Admiral Harrison studied the tactical maps Sarah had prepared, showing the correlation between enemy positions and the false intelligence provided by Peterson. The pattern was clear and terrifying in its implications. American submarines had been sent to their doom by information provided by their own command structure. "How quickly can we get warning messages to our submarines in the area?" the Admiral asked. "Sir, most are under radio silence orders that prevent them from receiving routine communications," Sarah replied. "We'll need to use emergency broadcast codes, but that will also alert enemy forces to our awareness of the compromise. It's a calculated risk." The Admiral authorized emergency communications despite the risk of alerting enemy forces to their discovery of the security breach. American lives took priority over operational security, and every minute of delay potentially meant the loss of another submarine crew. Captain Mitchell received the emergency broadcast just as his sonar operators confirmed the identity of the damaged submarine they had detected. The USS Hammerhead was indeed in distress, trapped on the ocean floor after suffering damage from what appeared to be a torpedo attack. The crew was alive but running low on oxygen, and their communication systems had been damaged. The emergency message from the carrier confirmed Captain Mitchell's worst fears about their compromised intelligence. The USS Leviathan was operating in waters where enemy submarines lay in wait, and any rescue attempt would likely trigger a deadly confrontation. However, the message also provided updated intelligence about enemy positions that Sarah had compiled from her investigation. "All stations, prepare for emergency rescue operations," Captain Mitchell announced over the submarine's internal communication system. "We have American personnel in distress, and we're the only asset in position to provide assistance. This operation carries significant risk, but we will not abandon our people." The crew of the Leviathan responded with the professionalism and courage that had earned them recognition as one of the Navy's elite submarine crews. They prepared rescue equipment while simultaneously readying the submarine's defensive systems for possible combat operations. Lieutenant Commander Williams coordinated the rescue planning with input from the submarine's senior officers. The operation would require bringing the Leviathan close enough to the Hammerhead to transfer personnel while maintaining defensive positioning against enemy submarines known to be in the area. Meanwhile, Sarah's analysis had revealed the location of additional enemy forces that had been positioned to intercept rescue operations. Her detailed understanding of submarine tactics and enemy capabilities allowed her to provide tactical recommendations that could mean the difference between success and disaster for the rescue mission. "Captain, we're receiving tactical updates from the carrier," the communications officer reported. "They're providing real-time intelligence about enemy submarine positions based on analysis of the compromised operational plans." Captain Mitchell reviewed the updated intelligence and realized that Sarah's work had given them a significant tactical advantage. Instead of operating blindly in enemy-controlled waters, they now had a detailed understanding of hostile positions and movement patterns. The rescue operation was still dangerous, but their odds of success had improved dramatically. The USS Leviathan approached the Hammerhead's position using a carefully planned route that avoided known enemy patrol areas. The submarine's nuclear propulsion system allowed for silent running at depths that would be impossible for diesel-electric submarines, providing a crucial advantage in the stealthy approach. As they neared the rescue site, Captain Mitchell's crew detected multiple hostile contacts surrounding the area where the Hammerhead lay disabled. The enemy submarines appeared to be waiting for rescue vessels to arrive, creating a deadly trap for any American forces attempting to provide assistance. "Sir, we have 6 confirmed enemy contacts in the immediate area," the sonar operator reported quietly. "They're positioned to cover all possible approach routes to the Hammerhead's location." Captain Mitchell realized that a conventional rescue approach would be suicide. However, Sarah's intelligence analysis had provided them with detailed information about enemy submarine capabilities and tactical preferences. This knowledge suggested an alternative approach that might allow them to complete the rescue while avoiding enemy forces. The plan Captain Mitchell developed relied on using the ocean's thermal layers and underwater terrain to mask their approach to the Hammerhead. The submarine would have to navigate through a narrow underwater canyon while maintaining complete silence, surfacing only long enough to establish communication with the trapped crew. Back on the carrier, Sarah monitored the rescue operation with growing anxiety. She had provided the best intelligence possible, but the success of the mission ultimately depended on Captain Mitchell's skill and the courage of his crew. The weight of responsibility was enormous, knowing that her analysis would determine whether American sailors lived or died. "Lieutenant Chen, we're receiving sonar reports from the Leviathan," Admiral Harrison announced. "Captain Mitchell has successfully approached the Hammerhead's position without detection. The rescue operation is beginning." The actual rescue required incredible precision and timing. The USS Leviathan had to surface near the damaged submarine while remaining hidden from enemy sonar operators. The Hammerhead's crew had to be transferred quickly before enemy forces detected the rescue operation and moved to intercept. Captain Mitchell's crew worked with extraordinary efficiency to transfer the survivors from the Hammerhead to their own submarine. The damaged vessel's captain provided crucial intelligence about enemy movements and tactics that had been observed during their mission. This information would prove valuable for future operations and help prevent similar tragedies. As the rescue neared completion, enemy submarines began to close on their position. The transfer of personnel had taken longer than anticipated, and hostile forces were moving to investigate unusual sonar contacts in the area. Captain Mitchell faced a critical decision about whether to complete the rescue or abandon the operation to ensure the survival of his own crew. "All personnel transferred successfully," Lieutenant Commander Williams reported. "The Hammerhead's crew is secure, but we have multiple enemy contacts approaching our position." Captain Mitchell ordered emergency dive procedures while maintaining silence to avoid detection. The USS Leviathan descended rapidly into the protective depths of the underwater canyon, using the terrain to mask their escape from enemy forces. The rescue had been completed just minutes before enemy submarines arrived at the Hammerhead's location. The successful rescue operation represented more than just saving lives. It demonstrated that American submarine crews could overcome enemy advantages through superior training, courage, and intelligence support. Sarah's analysis had provided the tactical advantage necessary for success, vindicating her expertise and dedication to service. Admiral Harrison received confirmation of the successful rescue with tremendous relief and pride. The operation had succeeded, despite enormous risks, and American personnel had been saved through the combined efforts of brave submarine crews and exceptional intelligence analysis. "Lieutenant Chen, your work made this rescue possible," the Admiral said during their post-operation briefing. "Captain Mitchell and his crew showed tremendous courage, but they could never have succeeded without the intelligence advantage you provided." Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that her professional skills had been used to save American lives. The false accusations and betrayal she had endured seemed less important now that positive outcomes had resulted from her vindication and return to duty. The USS Leviathan successfully returned to friendly waters with the rescued crew of the Hammerhead. Captain Mitchell's decision to disobey compromised orders and trust his own judgment had prevented a tragedy and demonstrated the importance of leadership courage in crisis situations. The investigation into Peterson's betrayal continued for months, revealing an extensive network of compromised operations and security breaches. Sarah played a crucial role in identifying and correcting the damage done by the enemy infiltration, helping to rebuild trust in American naval intelligence systems. Captain Mitchell received commendation for his leadership during the rescue operation, though his initial disobedience of orders required careful review by military authorities. The unique circumstances of operating with compromised intelligence ultimately justified his actions and reinforced the principle that officer judgment must sometimes override written orders. The rescue of the Hammerhead crew became a classified success story within naval special operations, demonstrating how individual courage and professional expertise could overcome enemy advantages. The operation also highlighted the critical importance of maintaining security within intelligence networks and the devastating consequences of betrayal. Sarah returned to full duty with renewed respect from her colleagues and superiors. Her experience of being falsely accused and ultimately vindicated had strengthened her commitment to service while also making her more vigilant about security threats within military organizations. The USS Leviathan continued its patrol duties with enhanced security protocols and improved intelligence procedures designed to prevent future compromises. Captain Mitchell and his crew had proven that American submarine forces could adapt and overcome even when facing enemies who possessed detailed knowledge of their operations and capabilities.